Hey guys, I'm Christy from Girls Can Grill. Today we are smoking up some tri-tip chili. Let's go. Let's go over the ingredients for this grilled tri-tip chili. Of course, I've got a tri-tip. This is a beef tri-tip. I do need to trim it out, but it weighs about 3.5 pounds. You'll find they weigh anywhere from 2.5 to 4 pounds. Use as much as you want. I usually just buy one and put the whole thing in the chili. If you want less meat, you can save some of the meat for some other recipe. If you want more meat, just go ahead and get yourself a bigger tri-tip. So also, we're gonna have a can of crushed tomatoes. I like beans in my chili. I know that's controversial, but that's the way I roll. I've got 2 cans of red kidney beans and 2 cans of navy beans. You can mix this up if you want to use black beans or any other kind of bean, go for it. I'm also going to use some beef broth as well as some chili powder and my brisket rub, which definitely has some chili components to it, so it works perfectly in this chili. And then to add to the chili, I like to use dried chilies. You can use any type of dried chili that you want. I've got a guajillo and an ancho here, and then we're going to use some bay leaves. It's that easy, pretty simple ingredients. So let's get started trimming out this tri-tip. So you can see there's a lot of kind of fat on top. There's just a little bit of fat on the bottom here. Technically you could leave it, but I like to just clean it up just a little bit, just get some of this off. And the reason for that is because I really want the rub to penetrate and flavor the meat, because that is going to penetrate and flavor the chili. There is also just a little bit of silver skin on here. What's gonna happen is we are going to season up this tri-tip. We're gonna light our grill. I am gonna be using my Brio today, and we're gonna be using cowboy charcoal, of course. Once it is mostly cooked up, then we're gonna dice it up, throw everything in a big kettle and throw that back on top of the grill and just kind of let it simmer. If you want, you could set your smoker to like 250 degrees. You could do it on a pellet grill, any type of smoker really, 250 degrees, and then just cook it until you like the smoke that you get on it, and then slice it, and then same thing, put it in your Dutch oven or your kettle. And for the kettle, you could either put that on your smoker, you could do live fire like we're gonna do today, you could even put it in an oven, or you could put it on the stovetop. There's lots of flexibility here. The main thing though is we wanna get some of that cowboy charcoal smokiness when we do the grilling of the tri-tip. That's what makes this unique as opposed to just cooking this in an oven. All right, that looks pretty good. Now I will tell you, this is just a choice grade tri-tip. If I'm just cooking a tri-tip, I like to go with prime grade, or sometimes I'll even do a Snake River Farms Wagyu, which by the way, use code Girls Can Grill and you can get 10% off of that. But when I'm putting something in a stew or a chili, choice grade works just fine. Now that this is all trimmed up, we're gonna season it with my brisket rub. This is Girls Can Grill brisket rub. You can find it on my website. You can find it on Amazon. It is basically kosher salt, coarse ground black pepper, granulated garlic, and a variety of chilies. And it's those chilies that make it perfect for making tri-tip chili. Now you could do this with any other cut of beef. It doesn't have to be tri-tip. You could use a chuck roast. You could use, I have round, although that's a little bit more tough, so I would let it simmer a little bit longer. You could technically use ribeye, but that would be a pretty expensive cut of meat to put into a chili. So I like tri-tip. It used to be a little bit more affordable than it is today. It's a cut that became popular in California. That's where it originated. And it used to not be so prevalent across the United States, but now it is easier for people to find. But because there's a demand for it, you know the price goes up. All right, a nice even coat. There's probably 2 to 3 tablespoons on this 3.5 pounder. You basically want to cover up all of the meat to where you don't really see the grain anymore. Let's go get that fire pit lit. Today I'm gonna be using the Cowboy hardwood briquettes. I love the flavor that I get from these. Let's get this bag open. Such satisfaction when that happens. All right, I got a couple of fire starters on the bottom. You could also use a charcoal chimney. I'll do that a lot of times, but I'm being lazy today. So I basically just light up a couple of fire starters, and then I kind of create a pyramid. And as these start to burn, I'll kind of spread them out. That's a good start. Okay, the coals are ready, and there are two ways you can do this. I like to do a little bit of indirect heat. So if you want, you could push all of the coals over to one side and then put your meat over here. But because I'm using a Brio, it has an elevated rack here, so I can actually lift my meat a little bit higher than the coals themselves. So when I put this on the grill here, you can see I'm still gonna get some heat, but it's not too intense, and I'm gonna get that beautiful smoky flavor from the cowboy charcoal. Now that the tri-tip is smoking, I'm gonna go ahead and throw everything into the Dutch oven, starting with a 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. The tomatoes are not seasoned, it's just tomatoes that are like pureed and crushed down. And then again, the beans, juice and all. Got some red kidney beans. Some navy beans. You can use any bean variety that you like. I just like this combo. Give that a good stir. Now we're gonna add in 2 cups of beef broth. You could use chicken broth, but we're making beef chili here, so I'm gonna use beef broth. I didn't get a measuring cup, but that feels like half a container. These are 4 cups in one like whole box. For the seasoning, I'm going to use a tablespoon of chili powder. Chili powder is a mix of dried chilies with other spices like garlic and stuff like that. And then I'm gonna use a tablespoon of my Girls Can Grill brisket rub. One of the keys to a really good chili is layering your flavors, layering your spices. So we added my brisket rub onto the tri-tip. We're adding it now, and then we're gonna add it again a little bit later. And then the last thing that I like to add to my chili is the dried chilies. They're gonna rehydrate as this cooks, and I also like to add a couple of bay leaves. So this is ready. Once the tri-tip comes off the grill, we're gonna add that to the pot. Since I'm cooking with open fire, there's no lid on this, I am gonna go ahead and flip it after about 30 minutes, the halfway point. And then I'm gonna continue smoking this for about another 30 minutes or so. The main thing is I want it to reach an internal temperature of about 130 degrees. Then we're gonna take the tri-tip off of the grill and go ahead and let it rest for about 10 to 15 minutes. All right, while the tri-tip is resting, I'm gonna go ahead and add some more coals to the grill. And I'm gonna drop this down a little bit closer to the coals, because what we're gonna be doing now is really simmering the chili. So if you're cooking this on a pellet grill, you would want your temperature to be about 350 degrees. If you're cooking it on a stovetop, you'd probably go about medium heat. Since we're cooking it on this, we don't have as much control, so I'm gonna lower this down, and I'm gonna do one more thing too. Now this step is completely optional, but because I wanna get some smoke flavor, I'm adding the Brio lid, which lets me add the pot in here and then close the lid, so that smoke is gonna really flavor up the chili. We're gonna let these coals light up and go back inside and dice up that tri-tip. Okay, now we are just going to cut up this tri-tip. Technically, it's fully cooked through right now. I cooked it to a beautiful kind of medium rare, and I got that cowboy smoke flavor. So we're just gonna do this in diced pieces, basically. I don't like them too large because I want them to not be too big of a mouthfeel when I'm eating my chili. And you just add them straight to the pot. And again, this is where you can decide how much meat you want in your chili. If you want, you can just do half of this and put it in the pot and then enjoy the rest of it, like for dinner tonight or for lunch tomorrow or a meal at another time. You can freeze it, reheat it later. But I think today we're gonna do the whole thing. As far as the size of my pieces, you can see right there, they're pretty small, like, I don't know, 1/2-inch cubes or so. I do like to let the meat rest before I slice into it. That way the juices kind of recirculate back into the meat, don't end up on the cutting board, because that way they will end up in your chili. All right, now we have our big pot of chili. I'm going to put it on the smoker, on the grill. And 2 important things. I'm going to leave it uncovered. There's two reasons for that. One, this is smoked chili. So I want the smoke of the cowboy charcoal to infuse into the chili and give it that great flavor. If I put a lid on it, that wouldn't happen. Two, we have a lot of moisture in here. Remember, they were the full can of beans with all the liquid included. So I want some of that to evaporate and simmer out. Because I'm using an open fire grill, I am adding this dome on top. The reason for that is because I want the smoke to stay kind of inside instead of like floating around into the air. If you've got a different type of grill, like a kettle grill that has a lid, put that on. If you're using a pellet grill, obviously your lid will be closed. Same thing with like a Big Green Egg or even a drum smoker. You'll just want to close the lid so all that smoke flavor goes right into your chili. Now we're just gonna let this simmer. I like to check on it every 30 minutes or so, give it a stir, make sure that the bottom isn't getting too hot. And then we're just gonna let it go until we like the flavor. We'll add a little bit more seasoning and then it'll be ready to serve. Okay, the chili is done. It's off the smoker. It's nice and thick, which is how I like it. So I cooked this for about an hour and it got to the thickness that I wanted where all that liquid evaporated. If you want it even thicker, cook it a little bit longer. If you like it a little bit thinner, don't cook it as long. Now what I'm doing right now is taking out those whole chili peppers. We don't need those in there. And if you're lucky enough to find the bay leaves, go ahead and pull those out too. Sometimes they're super obvious. Oh, there's one, yes. And then sometimes, oh, got it, found them both. Great, that way you don't end up serving those to your guests. Okay, then remember how I was talking about layering those flavors? I'm gonna do 1 more tablespoon of my Girls Can Grill brisket rub. Give that a nice stir. Really get it blended in there. Oh, it smells so good, you guys. Okay, I'm gonna go in for a taste to see if I need any more rub in here. I wanna make sure I get a bite of some beans, a bite of that tri-tip. It's super hot though, I gotta wait a second. Yum, really, really good flavor. The tri-tip has a little bit of chew to it still because we only let this simmer for an hour. If you want the tri-tip to like be totally shreddable and melt into this, then what I recommend is that you turn the temperature down on your smoker, on your grill, and let it cook a little bit longer, maybe even like for 2 hours instead of 1 hour. You could also add more liquid to the pot if you do feel like it's starting to dry out. Personally though, I love these little nuggets of tri-tip because it tells people that there's like meat in here, not just ground beef, but really smoked meat. So that's the way I like it. You guys can find the full recipe at girlscangrill.com. I have hundreds of other recipes there too, along with thousands of barbecue tips. And make sure you tap that subscribe button so you never miss a recipe like this.